Baldur's Gate 3 is a huge game with a ton of spells and actions you can perform, all of them having different effects, so there's bound to be many spells that you have missed that in fact are actually very good. In this video, I'm going to be showcasing what I believe to be the top 10 most underrated spells in the entire game. And of course, I'm going to try to only include spells that you may not already be aware of, like for example, everyone knows that Haste is OP since it gives you 2 actions, extra movement speed and AC, and that Guidance is by far the best cantrip in the game. And if you didn't know this, think of these as 2 extra spells for the list. My name is Dark Hero, and without any further ado, let's get right into the list. The first spell on our list is going to be Sanctuary. For a bonus action, you target one character. That character cannot be targeted by enemy attacks or spells for 10 entire turns, or until that character attacks or harms another creature, although they can still get hit by AoE spells. There's a lot of neat strategies that you can pull off with Sanctuary that kinda just break the game. You can have a thief spend one of its 2 bonus actions to cast Sanctuary on a slower character, that is at the end of the turn order, so they don't get badly injured before they even have a chance to fight. You can also have a character be far away from the party and have them aggro some melee enemies, only for you to use Sanctuary when they get close and they are effectively out of the battle for a decent amount of turns. A huge plus of this spell is that you can cast it on random NPCs, so a lot of quests or scenarios where you have to protect an NPC, like in the middle of Act 2, can easily be trivialized. Just keep in mind that you can lose Sanctuary even by not dealing damage, like for example if you are a College of Lore Bard casting Cutting Words to reduce the enemy's attack roll against an ally. Number 2 on the list is going to be Longstrider. It is a very simple level 1 spell that increases the movement speed of a creature you target by 3 meters or 10 feet. It is not a concentration spell and lasts until long rest, but by far the best part about the spell, and what makes it so good, is the fact that it's a ritual spell, which means you don't expend a spell slot when you cast it outside of combat. So after every long rest, you can simply have a character cast Longstrider on your entire party, and they will just have that extra movement speed until the next long rest. You can even leave the caster behind in your camp. The third spell on our list is going to be Hold Monster. It is a level 5 enchantment spell that requires concentration, very similar in effect to Hold Person, letting you paralyze a target for 10 turns, causing every attack made against it to have advantage, and all attacks made within 3 meters to be critical hits. The key difference here is that, unlike Hold Person that only lets you paralyze humanoids, Hold Monster works on any creature. With this spell, you can trivialize just about every encounter in the game by paralyzing a powerful enemy. I've seen a lot of people sleeping on this spell, perhaps they wrongly believed it would only target a specific type of creatures, when in fact it can target any and all creatures. So even though it is a costly spell, it is very much worth adding to your caster's kit. The next spell on the list you would be forgiven for thinking that it's not that great, as even the in-game description doesn't do it justice. The spell I'm talking about is Fear. By casting Fear, upon failing a wisdom saving throw, every enemy within a cone will become fearful for 2 turns, having disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. Additionally, any enemy hit by Fear will drop their weapon and start running away from you. Which means that for one, if they want to pick up their weapon again, they will need to use their movement and take up an action to do it, and if you have any melee combatants near the enemies that are trying to run away, they will proc opportunity attack. The description of the spell doesn't mention anything about the enemies running away, and instead it says that it will make it easier to hit enemies and that they cannot move, which is simply untrue. So I do want to highlight Fear because it is a very powerful spell and the description simply does not state half of the things it does. Next on the list is Disguise Self. It's a ritual spell, so it doesn't expend a spell slot if used outside of combat, and you can use it in a variety of ways. Do you have a sword that gives extra damage to Githyanki, or an axe that becomes stronger when held by a dwarf? With Disguise Self, you can fulfill that racial criteria. Do you want to commit crimes and not get in trouble? You can turn yourself into a different creature before you rob or attack someone. Then, even if you're spotted and your reputation with them drops, just find a place where they can't see you and remove your disguise. They won't have any idea it was you and you'll be good to go. Also, when you kill someone and cast Speak with the Dead on them, the game will often not allow you to talk to them. After all, you're the one who put them in that unfortunate situation. But if you cast this guy's self first, you'll be able to talk to them just fine. You can also turn yourself into one of these smaller sized races, and then by casting the spell Reduce, you can make yourself fit into all these smaller holes you would normally have no way of entering. Disguise Self is a deceptively useful spell that I'm sure a ton of players are not taking advantage of, and I highly encourage you to give it a try, if not just for how fun it is. The 6th spell on the list is Glyph of Warding, a 3rd level abjuration spell that does not require concentration. This spell allows spellcasters to inscribe a ward that can trigger various magical effects when stepped on by an enemy. Additionally, the caster can choose from 7 different varieties, those being Sleep, Detonation, Thunder, Lightning, Fire, Cold, and Acid. It should be noted that you can cast Glyph of Warding from range. You don't have to just place it on your feet, which I think makes it a lot better to use. It's a very convenient spell if, for example, you're in a dialogue and you know you're about to start a battle. You can very quickly swap to your caster and have them place a glyph before the enemy has a chance to do anything. It can also be quite effective mid-combat as a way to hold a choke point, or just be a strong AoE spell that comes in a variety of different elements, on top of being able to push enemies or put them all to sleep. The next spell on the list is going to be Shield. You may be surprised to see the Shield spell here on the list, but it's here for a good reason. Everyone I talk to seems to simply not pick up this spell, and frankly I don't understand why. For those that don't know, Shield is a reaction spell that, at the cost of your reaction and a level 1 spell slot, lets you increase your AC by 5 until the end of your turn, while also making you take no damage from magic missile, though that's not really what it's used for. The fact that it's a reaction means that you don't have to cast it preemptively without knowing if the enemy will be attacking you. It will pop up letting you know what the enemy's roll was, and if you want to cast Shield to add +5 to your AC, potentially causing the enemy to miss. And since it lasts until the start of your next turn, you can have a character in the front lines facing the enemy, and as soon as they are targeted by an attack, they can cast Shield, and that attack, as well as all the following attacks, will have to go through your increased AC. If you ever want to try a lone wolf run of Baldur's Gate 3, this spell will definitely be doing some of the heavy lifting. It's just such a good spell, and I have no idea why more people don't use it. I know many of you are already aware of this, but I really wanted to show just how powerful this simple spell is for those that weren't giving it proper credit. The 8th spell on the list is going to be Cloud of Daggers. It's a 2nd level conjuration spell that requires concentration and has the caster create an area of spinning daggers that attack anyone inside, dealing 4d4 slashing damage. Any creature standing on it or just passing through it will also take extra damage. A lot of times combat in Baldur's Gate 3 will be a bunch of enemies funneling through a small area. You can then cast Cloud of Daggers on a choke point or an entrance or even near an NPC you need to protect, and the enemies will have no choice but to hurt themselves. Keep in mind that Cloud of Daggers lasts for 10 turns, and that if you ever wish to reposition it, you can do so without expending another spell slot. This spell did a lot of work for me all the way up until Act 3, and even still I find myself using it in many different situations, so it is definitely a great spell to add to your arsenal. Next on the list is going to be Spike Growth, a 2nd level transmutation spell that requires concentration, where the caster creates a large area filled with spikes, and any creature that walks in it takes 2d4 piercing damage for every 1.5 meters they move. Additionally, their movement is halved when within the area. With this spell, the enemies would take longer to reach you while also taking damage on the way there. Some enemies may be able to avoid Spike Growth's area altogether by using a spell, so they will be spending their actions purely for movement, which means the spell has already saved you from taking damage when you otherwise would have. The cool part is that it has no saving throws, so the enemy will always take damage from it. This spell will do wonders for you if you can combine it with another character casting Cloud of Daggers, truly making it hard for the enemies to just have a safe place to stand on. And the final spell on our list is going to be Darkness, a 2nd level evocation spell that requires concentration. This spell allows spellcasters to conjure a cloud of magical darkness that heavily obscures and blinds creatures within. Because it has no saving throw, it's a guaranteed way of inflicting blind on enemies, which means it's a guaranteed way of gaining advantage on your attack rolls against an enemy, and of course that in turn means that it is especially fantastic for sneaky rogues. The obvious downside of this spell is that you yourself will also be blinded if you are within the area, and you won't be able to hit any enemies within either. But the idea is you can combine the Darkness spell with the Warlock's Eldritch Invocation, Devil's Sight, to be able to see in Magical Darkness. This is the only way to be able to see in Magical Darkness in the entire game, other than the Eversight Ring, which makes the wearer immune to being blinded. That being said, you can simply use Darkness with your only intent being to blind your enemies and make things harder for them. You could then cast a fireball on the area, for example, or have another caster use Spike Growth or Cloud of Daggers near the route the enemies would take to escape the Darkness cloud. Or you could use the Darkness to try to protect an ally from melee combatants. It's a very fun spell to use and one of the few you can cast without immediately triggering combat or aggroing an NPC, so you can do plenty of fun and stupid things too, like casting Darkness in a shop and robbing the entire place without anyone noticing. These are my top 10 most underrated spells in Baldur's Gate 3, let me know if I have missed any in the comment section below. My name is Dark Hero and as always, thank you very much for watching.